An insurance company can credit 4 to 5 times the interest that banks do with greater safety. In this episode, I'm going to address how a max-funded IUL can earn tax-free returns that are safer and higher than banks offer, or credit unions for that matter. Get ready, a lot of people do not understand how money works. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist now for more than 48 years, helping people to optimize their financial assets, minimize taxes, empower what I call their authentic wealth. And in my educational events and in the 12 books that I've been blessed to have authored thus far, I address how money works. And a lot of people go, wow, I've never been taught this before. And I begin to tell them about how banks and credit unions operate. And I begin to teach things like the velocity of money, and they're like blown away. They sit there with this deer in the headlight look. And so I usually start out and talk about, there's 4 things you can do with money. You can spend it, lend it, own with it, or give it away. And they say, what do you do, Doug? And I say, well, I sort of double dip. I own and loan on the same assets. And they go, what? Okay. Now, when you put your money in a bank or a credit union or an insurance company for that matter, it's in a lended position, okay? You're lending them your money. In fact, banks call it OPM, other people's money. Now, are they just a benevolent institution paying you interest while they have your money sitting in a vault? No. Most people realize that banks are taking your money on deposit and they're taking a portion of that and loaning it back out again. Now, they have to have a certain amount on hand, liquid and safe, in case there's this run on their bank and people want all their money out, so that we don't have what happened that caused the Great Depression and so forth, and the movie It's a Wonderful Life and so forth. And so that's why FDIC was created and what have you, to be able to prevent people from panicking. But truth be known, a lot of banks and credit unions will take a portion of their tier 1 assets. What's a tier 1 asset? This is money that they have to have on hand, so to speak, liquid and safe, that they can grab within 24 to 48 hours in case of a run on their bank. And so they will put 30 to 40% of their tier 1 assets into multi-trillion-dollar insurance companies. Why? Well, because if you look at periods of time like the Great Depression, there were banks closed and there were 40% that never reopened again. Some real estate dropped 80%. There was not one single legal reserve insurance company that went under in the Great Depression. That means they have to have reserves on hand, liquid and safe. Where do insurance companies have their money, which is money that you've deposited in there? In AAA and AA bonds, and those are very liquid. They have money loaned out on skyscrapers and shopping malls, but they only loan maybe 50 to 60% loan to value, whereas banks loan out 80% loan to value. So if an insurance company has to foreclose on a skyscraper or a shopping center, they usually come out smelling like a rose. And so a lot of banks will take their tier 1 assets and put it into these insurance companies, because they weathered the Great Depression with flying colors, crediting 2.5%, 3%. Not one single legal reserve insurance company went under in the Great Depression. Same thing happened in 2008 when 400 banks went under. 900 more were on the watch list, on the brink of going under. And the federal government asked the 5 major banks in America to disclose where they had their tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety. And they had 30 to 40% in BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. Corporations had it in COLI, corporate-owned life insurance. And the banks were actually borrowing the public's money at 1% or less. So every million that people put into banks, loaned the banks, they were paying $10,000 a year in interest, but they turned around, they were making at that time 4 or 5% in the insurance company. How much more is 5% than 1? Don't say 4, it's 5 times, it's 500% more. They pay $10,000 a year in interest. They turn around and make $50,000. Again, I've said this many times on these episodes. Would you hire an employee for 10 grand that made you an extra 50 grand? Yeah, that's a 500% return on employment cost. Would you buy a widget machine for 10 grand that made you an extra 50 grand? That's a 500% return on equipment cost. So that's how money works. So when we talk about how these insurance companies can do this, they're able to earn tax-free returns safer and pay higher interest than the banks offer because the insurance companies are diversifying and putting it out there into the economy, what have you. Now, one of my favorite vehicles is a max-funded indexed universal life. Indexed universal life allows the insurance company to pay me whatever an index or indices may grow by in a given year if the economy or the market goes up in a given year. Now, I don't have to do that. If I feel nervous or bearish about America, I can just settle for the general account portfolio rate. Let's say the insurance company on their portfolio of assets in this low interest environment we're in as of the recording of this episode, let's say it's 4%. So I can just settle for 4%. If they need one of those percentage points for their profit, I'm going to net 3. So let's say I have $1 million of cash value that I've built up in my IUL policy. That would be $30,000. I can settle for $30,000. It's tax-free. But if I feel bullish about America, in a year I can link to an index or indices, several indexes of my choice that they offer, the S&P, the Dow Jones, the Russell 2000, whatever. So let's just keep it simple and say it's the S&P. What am I doing? I'm not telling the insurance company to invest my $1 million in the market, in the S&P. My million has to stay safe in the insurance company, earning, let's say, 4. I'm relinquishing that 4% or 40,000 in this example. And I'm saying, you can use that 40,000. You don't have to keep it on hand to credit me. I will settle for no interest this year, but don't risk my $1 million. And you can use that 40,000 to have the wherewithal to pay me whatever the S&P does. So this is a no-brainer for the insurance company. They take that $40,000, the interest on my $1 million, and they buy upside options in the index, the S&P. And if the S&P goes up 8%, they have the wherewithal to pay me 8. If it goes up 12, maybe they pay me 12, but they may cap me. But the floor is 0. If the market crashes, the options expire worthless. But I didn't lose my $1 million. And as Will Rogers once said, people get more concerned about the return of their money when things get bad rather than the return on their money. So 0 is your hero when everybody else in America might be losing 20, 30, or 40% like happened in 2008. None of our clients with IUL lost a dime due to that downturn in 2008. And the first 90 days of 2009, many locked in gains of 16% because you pick up where you left off. And so when you are linking, the insurance company is buying upside options, which gives them the wherewithal to pay you whatever the index does, maybe up to a cap. But some years, like in the year 2020, March of 2020, COVID-19 pandemic, the market dropped 30%. Our savvy advisors told their clients to link to a 1-year point-to-point with no cap. But they're going to subtract 5 percentage points off the back end, which is normally too expensive in just a normal market where the market goes up 12, you're only going to net 7. That year, March of 2021, 1 year later, the market was up 66.33%, minus 5 percentage points. Our clients got credited 61.33%. This is incredible. We had a client that had about 850,000 before. That was in March of 2020. A year later, he had 1,382,000. He made over $500,000 tax-free on his indexed universal life. And if the next year the market would have crashed, which it didn't, but if it would have, he would have not lost one dime of the 500,000 he made the year before, because you lock in your gains every year. You need to search this channel to learn about lock-in and reset. So this is incredible when you understand how to accumulate your money tax-free in a laser fund, participate when the market goes up by linking to an index, but not lose if the market goes down. And this usually tweaks your rate of return by 2 or 3 percentage points over the general account portfolio rate, which might be 3 or 4% in an IUL policy in a low interest environment. The point is this. You can look at any serious period in American history, the Great Depression or the Great Recession, and you'll see how people came through with flying colors by bypassing banks and credit unions and putting their money directly into insurance companies, where the banks and credit unions take a portion of your money to increase their liquidity, safety, and rate of return. Does that make sense? If you want to learn more about this, I want to gift you a free copy of my most recent 300-page best-selling book called The Laser Fund. This retails for $20 or more on Amazon. You don't need to pay that. I'll pay for the book. Here's how you claim your free copy. You go to laserfund.com, L-A-S-E-R fund.com, and you contribute a nominal amount to the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that, and I will pay for the book and fire out a hard copy to you. Now, you can click on the link below to do that, but also when you're in there, there's options there if you like to listen and learn, watch and learn. Check out some of the online educational webinars that we do, and you can even talk to a professional to see how these strategies may apply to your particular set of circumstances. But folks, this is about you and your brighter future. Do not miss out.